Raina Troy Hotline.
Alicia, Michael, what's going on?
We know you have takes. We have takes.
I'm actually surprised that your rant line, rave line, whatever, isn't completely full.
Why can't we just win a game?
Can I blame Michael Castillo for this?
Can I blame Bob Connolly for this?
Could I put on a zebra shirt and just go out there?
Scratch, claw, up against the wall.
Can't explain it what I'm feeling right now, guys.
I can't believe it.
Let's open up that rave line! Woohoo!
Oh, I can't believe USC is 7-5 again. Oh no!
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to episode 546, coming to you on Thursday, July 11th. We're going to talk about the latest in USC football, including looking forward to the start of EA Sports college football, which launches the pre-release on Monday afternoon. We're super pumped about that. We're going to talk about the top 100 players there, where USC has players or maybe player in that ranking, and so much more. On this episode, as always, you can follow us on Twitter at Rant of Troy, like us on Facebook, facebook.com/Rant of Troy, email address 818-643-7227, Second Woods Bruin Show. That's our phone number. Our email address is rantoftroy@fanside.com.
I'm all turned around now.
And our phone number is 818-643-7227. Anyways, I'm your host, Mike Castillo, joined along with my co-host here in the Retro Studio in Los Angeles, Alicia Derritola.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. We're back for another episode. We are a day late, but not $1 short. I hope not.
Sometimes we are $1 short.
Sure.
Sometimes it feels that way.
But here we are, Thursday, July 11th, only a couple days away from the start of EA College Football 25. We're super pumped about that. Today on this episode, we're going to go over a big one in the Big 10 minutes, Ohio State. So stay tuned for that to see if we can sort of jam everything into 10 minutes, talking about the Buckeyes. But Alicia, I think we just got to get right into it, right? Let's just get into the news, shall we? Let's start with EA College Football 25. The early release is on Monday, now at 1 p.m. Pacific time.
Oh, yeah.
So the early release is technically the 16th, which is Tuesday, which usually means 9 p.m. Pacific time is when the games launch, because they'll usually launch at midnight Eastern, which will be 9 p.m. for us on the West Coast, which is awesome, right? Like, we can play it the night before, right? So I was looking forward to playing Monday night at 9 p.m., but ESPN put out a little thing. Not ESPN, EA Sports put out a little thing that the game is going to be sort of available if you pre-ordered. You can pre-download and get ready to go at 1 p.m. Pacific time on Monday.
I am
clear your schedules.
Pumped.
Yeah.
I am also regretful that I have scheduled a podcast appearance for Monday night because I thought the game wouldn't be out yet. So
can I blame Alicia Derritola for this?
So yes, I will have to abandon my my binge of the new college football game for a couple hours to record a podcast with another show, but I will still be playing a lot.
Yeah. Well, what's that other show? Give
Quack 12. I'm going to be with the guys over at Quack 12, Adam and Hithliday. I've got my Invisalign in, and I didn't realize that Hithliday was going to be a difficult thing to say with a new tray in. So apologize.
Yeah. Orthodontic problems.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, super excited for you to be there. The guys over at the Quack 12 are awesome. One of these days we're going to do like a Doughboys-esque type episode and talk food stuff. So look forward to that because, of course, everybody knows
you have really good food takes.
Yeah, exactly. So Alicia, let's talk about the top 100 players in the EA College Football 25 game. It was announced the top 100 players by overall ratings this week. Of the 100, 31 are in the Big Ten. 31, almost a third, are in the Big Ten. The number one overall player is Michigan cornerback Will Johnson, 96 overall. Michigan has 5 guys in the top 100. Ohio State has 8 in the top 100. USC, drum roll please, 1. Jonah Monheim. He is a center rated 92 overall, the 41st top 41st overall ranked player in the game. Your thoughts?
I mean, that's well earned by Jonah Monheim. I've been sort of thinking about USC's most important players coming into the season. I think RJ Abidia at 24/7 Sports is doing a series, so I keep seeing the tweets, and it gets me thinking, like, who are USC's most important players? And I keep coming back to Jonah Monheim. I think that obviously Miller Moss is going to be super important, and a lot of guys on defense are going to be super important. But when it comes down to it, Jonah Monheim succeeding at center is kind of the end all be all for USC this year. He is the platform upon which USC can build some success. And he is a very talented player. He would not be getting that kind of rating from EA otherwise. The question for Monheim, for USC, for everyone is he's definitely a 92 as a guard. I think he's definitely a 92 as a tackle. Is he a 92 as a center? That's my big question mark. So nice to see USC have somebody in there. Realistically, if you look at the rest of USC's roster, I understand why USC doesn't have a load of guys in there. I think very much this roster is one that the snubs will be after the fact snubs, like guys who proved that they should have been there in the first place. But on merit right now, I think maybe, Kamari Ramsey probably has something to say about not being in that top 100, but it's hard to really make an argument for too many others.
Yeah, the top 100 players are basically all 90s overall.
Yeah.
Eric in the chat says that leaked screenshots show Miller Moss as an 86 overall. Yeah, that seems about right, I think. And
well, I mean, Arch Manning is an 87, so
sure.
Who's
now going to be in the game. He kind of, I think that was all a PR play to not be in it and then be in it. And he's in the news cycle twice. Looking at quarterbacks, other notable names: Shedeur Sanders, 93 overall from Colorado. Carson Beck from Georgia is 93 overall. Dylan Gabriel, the 30th ranked player, is a 92, along with Quinn Ewers, who's also a 92. Looking at the list of notable guys on this list, I thought it was interesting that Arizona wide receiver T-Mac, Tederario McMillan, 94 overall, 14th most valuable player in the game.
I see it. I see it.
One of those guys you're glad
dudes
that SC doesn't have to face.
Yeah.
Just like SC doesn't have to face Mika Ibuka, who is 93 overall, the 19th rated player. Cal's Jaden Ott, 93 overall, 25th in the nation. Good thing he's not on USC's schedule going forward. How about Josh Connerly? Remember him from recruiting?
There are some names there.
He's a 90. He's a 90, the 95th overall player. Sean from beautiful Austin, Texas in the chat says it's criminal that Branch didn't make the list. I think that Zachariah Branch has a tough spot here because I don't think that he should be rated 90 overall as a wide receiver right now. I don't think he's there yet. As a returner, he absolutely should be, but that's not how the game works. Like the game, usually you have a return rating within your normal rating, and that's not what ranks you as an overall player, which I think hurts Zachariah Branch a lot here. He's someone that you mentioned that could absolutely, if the season goes as you hope it does, you hope that he ends up being sort of a 90 overall guy. Absolutely.
Yeah, and again, it's USC has a ton of guys who are talented enough to be on this list, but not proven enough to be on the list yet.
Right.
So I think Zachariah Branch is chief among them. He needs to prove that he can be a star wide receiver.
Yeah.
He can lead a receiving core. I think he's uber talented, but even in the conversations you and I have had with people in the chat, other USC fans, people are talking about Jacoby Lane. People are talking about Mekhi Lemon, and it's no shade on Zachariah Branch, but in terms of being a go-to wide receiver, I'm not even sure that Zachariah Branch is number one on my list of USC guys who could be that guy for USC. So he needs to prove he's more than special teams. He needs to prove that he's more than gimmick, and I think he can, but he hasn't done it yet. So I'm not really like, I don't. It doesn't feel like a snub in this case.
I think part of that is last year how he was used. He was mostly used to get into space on jet sweeps, swing passes, stuff like that. He wasn't necessarily used as your typical like flanker, or split end, or your Z wide receiver, whatever you want to call it, your X, right? Like he wasn't used that way, predominantly compared to the other guys in SC's receiving core. But this year he's going to have to be, given that there's no Taj Washington, there's no Mario Williams, there's no Brendan Rice. He's going to have to be one of those big names in USC's wide receiver core. And I think that he absolutely is capable of being a great wide receiver, but we got to see it first. Looking at the guys on the notable list, and any other thoughts? A lot of Ohio State players, 8 in the top 100.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is, Michigan still has top line talent. That's the big thing. Maybe not the depth that they had last year.
Yeah,
because they lost a whole ton of guys, but they still do have some top line talent there. USC is lucky not to have to face Ohio State in the regular season. And obviously Colorado and Arizona and Cal are interesting because we know those names, but again, guys that USC doesn't have to deal with. LSU does have some guys that USC is going to have to face immediately, including the number 2 overall player, Will Campbell, the left tackle at LSU. Their right tackle, Emory Jones, as well, is ranked 92nd. So that's going to be a huge challenge for USC's defensive line in the first game of the campaign. It's going to be quite telling to see whether or not USC's defensive line can go toe-to-toe with some, not just the size of an SEC front, but the talent that LSU is going to be bringing to the table on in that regard. So USC is going to play a lot of talented teams. That's the question that keeps coming up is, can USC's own potential rise to meet what is already proven talent with several of the opponents for the coming year?
Yeah, they're going to play a lot of talented teams. Absolutely. I think it does still help that when you look at sort of the schedule that SC has to play, they don't play Ohio State this year, barring some sort of conference championship game, or, maybe even a trip to the playoffs.
Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs. You kidding me?
But you look at Michigan. SC's got to play Michigan, 5 in the top 100. Oregon has 5 in the top 100, but SC doesn't play Oregon.
Notre Dame has 4 in the top 100.
Notre Dame has 4, and LSU have 4. So, and the first 2 weeks they got to play the first 3 weeks they play 2 of the top. They're the exact top 2 players in the country, according to the EA rankings. But of course, the games aren't won in video games. Those are only that's a merit. That's looking at talents as a measurement of everything else. And we know that SC still has a ton of talent, but I think the SC's talent is going to be like mid to high 80 guys right now.
Yeah,
rather than in the 90s, and they're going to have to prove that they can play at that top level and play cohesively as a team.
That's going to be the fun thing about USC this year is I agree. I think USC is just a team full of like 80-ish kind of guys who
85-ish
who USC needs. I mean, Miller Moss is a really good example. If the leaked screenshot is true and he's an 86, like he's a really, really good example of somebody who could be a huge riser if they do. I don't know. Are they going to do live updates?
I would
maybe
imagine
for Ultimate
so.
Team, I'm guessing.
Sure.
Yeah. So, however it goes, like you think about guys like Miller Moss and especially on defense, a lot of the transfers, the the Kamari Ramsey and John Humphrey and the Arnold Akili Arnold and Easton Mascarenas Arnold, like there are some guys who will be out there to prove that they deserve to be in there.
Sure.
And Bear Alexander's another really good player who you could see being their sort of 80-ish guys, but they need to take that next step up to being 90s, and it's up to USC's coaches to get them there, and that's what's really exciting, to go into a season sort of fresh, knowing, especially on the defensive side, that it is a new voices in the room. The thing that we really liked about USC staff that they put together was that, to a man, these were people that were overqualified for the jobs that they have.
Mm-hmm.
And that means that at least at one point in their career, they proved that they could develop players at positions.
Right.
And so it's going to be cool to see what they're able to do, because USC is coming from a position, USC is coming from a position of being doubted. And like, we always make fun of Georgia and other teams, the chip on their shoulder, no one believed in us, and it's like, you guys were ranked in the top 5 the whole year. USC is literally in a position where they are being doubted up, down, left, and center. And in our experience, USC teams that go into seasons in this position outperform that position pretty highly. So, if history serves, it should be a fun season. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. The other thing is, expect there to be a lot of high-ranking Trojans if you do play Ultimate Team, because I'm not a Madden Ultimate Team guy, so I don't have high hopes for how Ultimate Team's going to work in EA College Football. But apparently, they have the licensing through the NFL to use the current NFL players. So guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown, Juju, Caleb Williams, they're going to have cards in the game in Ultimate Team. And I think that's going to be a big boost to what SC can bring that way if you want to play with those guys. I'm not sure how the Heisman stuff is going to go. Like, would they have Reggie Bush? Would they have
now we're talking
Carson Palmer? I know Matt Leinart is involved with a different video game, so I wonder if his exclusive rights are through that. I don't know. I don't know. We're gonna have to see how all of that stuff comes to be. Big Ten Media Days are coming up later this month. The Trojans have their 3 representatives. It's gonna be Miller Moss, Jonah Monheim, and Kamari Ramsey going to Naptown, Indianapolis, to talk to the Big Ten media.
Yeah, I don't think there's any big surprises here, but as always, we can draw conclusions from the guys that get sent to Media Day. If there was any doubt about Miller Moss being the starting quarterback at USC, the answer,
I will say, it feels very telling. I am the one who's talked about it would still be a competition. I think that Mayavi can still beat him out, right?
Well, it could be 2016. I'm pretty sure. Didn't Max Brown wasn't he a Media Day invitee?
Was he? I don't remember.
I can't remember.
Either way, I think this is a situation where if I'm Lincoln Riley, I don't bring a quarterback. Unless you know for sure that he's going to sort of be your guy.
Unless you're Miller Moss, and I think they know for sure that he's their guy.
It kind of reads that way.
That's my read on it. I think there's
it's just interesting, given how coaches in college football now are so hush-hush about who wins the battle. They will deny. It'll be obvious who the quarterback's going to be, and they won't tell you until, that Sunday night in Vegas, when whoever goes under center, or in this case, behind in the shotgun, right? That's when you know. And yet Lincoln Riley sort of seems like he is sort of going all in on Miller Moss, and rightfully so, given the Holiday Bowl stuff, but he's going to have to keep that going forward. I still think that Mayavi, if he has a great camp, absolutely could force the issue. We'll have to see how that all goes. Let's talk about Josh Pate. The Josh Pate show I always forget the name of his show. What's the name of his show? The the thing.
Late Kick Live.
There you go. Yeah. He talked a lot about USC this week. Alicia, what do you have to say?
Yeah, this was a clip that was doing the rounds. We can maybe put it in the show notes. It sort of went viral on USC Twitter, and it was essentially Josh Pate talking about the state of USC's football program.
Yeah,
somewhat. I mean, a lot to do with NIL, and to sum up what he said for those who haven't listened, and I would encourage you guys to go listen. He said that basically he thought that USC would be an NIL giant and a transfer portal giant when all of these things happen, but that
I think we all did.
That hasn't necessarily come to pass. And he thinks that USC doesn't have the right people making the decisions in the background. He specifically said he doesn't think it's Lincoln Riley that's the problem. He thinks it's the people above Lincoln Riley, the decision makers, the organizational structure that Riley stepped into. He said that USC isn't close to touching like Texas, Ohio State, or Oregon in terms of NIL power. And I think there's truth to that in the sense that because one of the other things he said, it's not that USC is lacking dollars. I tend to think that. I think USC has NIL dollars. It's either how USC is choosing to use it or how they are managing it or how it is being proposed to players that there's some sort of disconnect going on. And yeah, Josh Pate basically went to town on USC's administration, that there seems to be, he thinks that there is a lack of cohesiveness, coherency, doesn't feel like everybody's singing from the same hymn sheet. And that when that happens, you end up in a situation where you lag behind the programs that are all in lockstep. I thought one of the interesting things he brought up, because it has been open season on Lincoln Riley in a lot of places. I mean, I should have added this to the rundown. I'm sorry that I didn't, because I forgot about it up until now. Paul Feinbaum said that he thinks that Lincoln Riley won't be at USC in 2025. He thinks Lincoln Riley will be out by the end of the season, which I think is an absurd thing to say, just from a logistical standpoint. USC is not firing Lincoln Riley no matter what happens, unless they can fire him for cause. They are not firing Lincoln Riley this year, even if things go bad. And Lincoln Riley leaving USC, I think it will be very difficult for him too, because unless USC completely screwed up the contract, which to my knowledge, Brandon Sosna was involved in that. I have decent amount of faith that he wouldn't have let USC screw up the contract. I would imagine that Lincoln Riley getting out of the contract would be pretty prohibitively expensive too. Besides which, I don't think USC is going to be in a position where they have to get rid of the coach. I think I think USC might be in a place where the season is slightly disappointing, but not to the degree that you burn the whole thing down.
Right.
But so aside from that it's open season on Lincoln Riley, but Josh Pate basically says that he thinks that Lincoln Riley didn't get what was pitched to him when he decided to come to USC in terms of the structure that USC was putting together. And I wonder how much of that might be kind of true, because Lincoln Riley came to USC under an athletic director, Mike Bone, but very specifically his chief of staff, Brandon Sosna, who was putting together a structure that was going to make USC competitive, and then he left, and then USC seemed to sort of be in sort of a liminal space. And then they bring in Jen Cohen. Jen Cohen hasn't been at USC very long. She's still having to sort of sort out things in the athletic department. And it wouldn't surprise me if USC doesn't have everything running very smoothly at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Is that acceptable? No, USC needs to get to a point where they're running smoothly.
Yeah.
But to me, that seems like where USC is at, this disconnect between the dollars that USC says it has, that we think it has, versus how USC is sort of bringing everything together to marry strategies from keeping players on the roster, which USC has generally done pretty well.
Yeah, I know that they got Bear to stay, right? Like
you can point to Malachi Nelson and Damani Jackson and Tackett Curtis, but for me, the circumstances around those departures had a lot less to do with NIL and a lot more to do with circumstance. So,
on-field play as well.
Yeah, what will be will be.
Right.
But there are a lot of other players that USC could have lost. Bear Alexander chief among them. If USC's NIL was not good enough to keep guys present, USC brought in a ton of transfers, missed on a few transfers that they really wanted. So, maybe it's the top end that USC is missing out on. But
I think part of it is it's the line play, right? Like the line guys are the ones that people are always going to remember. SC can get as many 5 stars on the perimeter as they do, as they can, will, etc. But if you don't have those guys on the line, I think it's easy to still say, but you're not bringing in those guys. You're not bringing in another Bear Alexander. You're not going to get the guys from Texas A&M that were leaving and going to get the guys from Georgia and all that. But I keep going back to the fact that NIL is, and we've said this before, like it's so new that I think so much of it is a lot like, to make an F1 analogy, when F1 every 5 years or so, they put out the new specifications on what it's like to build a car, what the rules are to build a car. And that's kind of like what NIL was. Like, okay, this thing is coming. There's very vague bullet points. Build your strategy to this. And you're like, oh, okay. You just got to figure out this thing. And I think SC assumed that they were going to be very strong. And I think we all did, because SC is in a major media market. SC has a crap ton of history and prestige that way. And SC's always been, a big fish. They're a blue blood. But we've learned now that isn't the entire thing. And I think that when you put that into, SC has done well to get a bunch of transfers in positions of need, like they have on defense, but not all the positions of need. It's still, they've made gains, but not all the gains. And you combine that with what, like, schools like Texas and Oregon, schools that don't have the historic pedigree that USC does. But they have their interpretation of how NIL was is so different than SC has been. Walter in the chat says, first of all, it's not NIL, it's pay for play or a signing bonus to come to a school. I mean,
it literally is pay for play at this point. It's pay for play wrapped up in NIL.
Did you see the quote from Dave Aranda at Baylor?
Yeah, amazing quote.
Asked why Baylor's recruiting is upticked. Well, we're paying guys.
He literally said, we're paying players. He literally said that. Like, can you imagine 5 years ago, I come to you and say the head coach at Baylor University had a quote literally that said, we are paying players. Yeah. It would have been absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
But listening to, I think what's interesting listening to you and listening to Josh Pate is this idea that, like, USC should act like Josh Pate literally said USC should act like USC. And you've talked about USC's sort of historic relevance and all that. But remember, there are literally stories that Ryan Abraham tells about how Chris Carlisle asked for better weight equipment and USC said, well, you're winning with the crap that you have. Like, USC acting like USC is not necessarily any different than what you're seeing from USC right now. It's
historically, SC acting like SC is pointing to the history books and saying, well, that's what you want, isn't it? And it's like, I get it that's self-serving, and there's a lot of people who, any Oregon tweets that is replied to by a USC fan mentions the number of national championships and the discrepancy there. But that only gets you so far in terms of recruiting.
It doesn't help that Oregon literally, there was an article out this week about how Phil Knight has given Oregon unlimited resources for NIL, like unlimited NIL dollars.
Right.
And so then USC gets compared to Oregon, and it's like, well, is that even fair? Not that USC shouldn't be going toe to toe with Oregon for a lot of these recruits and winning more of these battles than they are, But like, is it even fair when Phil Knight has decided that he's going to Roman Abramovich this ish, like,
rest in peace, Roman Abramovich. Not really, but you know what I mean. This is where I go. Just pull up the notable alumni page of SC's Wikipedia, and
but none
go
of them
down
are
the list.
No, but that's the problem.
Like
that's the problem. USC doesn't have a football interested sugar daddy the way that Oregon does. I mean, and I'm not excusing
the CEO of United, cared enough to put their name on the Coliseum turf.
Yeah, because they get to have the name there. Like they get to be sponsors and all of that kind of stuff. Like USC doesn't have unlimited resources being funneled into the program. And that's a USC thing too, because this is this is something we've talked about. Part of the problem is that USC gets people excited by winning, and winning breeds attention, and attention breeds attendance and donations and all of these kinds of things.
A lot of that stuff ends up being a year or two after the fact.
Yeah, it's not like a program like Texas A&M, who is just so desperate to win that they will just funnel, Oregon desperate to win that they will funnel in money. Yeah. Or Nebraska.
But this is frustrating because the SC fans, the people listening to this podcast, the people that are subscribed to the P and all that stuff, like those people are desperate. Like those,
but we don't have
diehard fans are desperate.
We don't have millions of dollars to give to USC to make this happen. And there's a worry. I think there's a legitimate worry, and USC needs to answer this question and take a deep look at itself. And hopefully this is what Jen Cohen is doing. But if you donate money to USC, are you getting your money's worth in terms of the way that money is being spent? It's right. It's like taxes. Like people hate giving taxes if they're not seeing the fruit of their taxes in what the government does. Like that's just, from a USC perspective, I could see the broad donor base looking around and going like, I didn't fund Clay Helton's buyout, and I didn't fund Lincoln Riley's contract, 10 years, $100 million supposedly, to go 8-5. Like, and it sucks.
But this is where I also say that like Lincoln Riley has had one season in which he went 8-5. Like,
yes, and
let's just
entirely. I mean, this is why I got so offended by the Paul Feinbaum thing, where he said that the train has left the station for Lincoln Riley having success at USC, and I'm like,
the problem is,
what are you talking about?
The problem is that year one and year two were
flipped.
If they were the other way around, I think things would be so different.
Yeah.
And maybe not, because then it would be coming off of that Cotton Bowl game, and people were sour about the Cotton Bowl game and all that stuff. And maybe you would say that, if whatever. I'm saying that if this past year was year one,
Alex Grinch would still be USC's defensive coordinator.
Sure, fair enough. But I'm just saying, if this past year was year one, and then Lincoln Riley goes out and gets a new defensive coordinator and all that stuff, and like they go into year two with a quarterback who ends up winning the Heisman Trophy in year two and they go 11-1 the regular season. Like things are just, I think so much of the discourse is completely different. But it's not, and this is why you've got to rebound. You got to find a way to prove. I think Lincoln Riley's track record says that he is not an 8-5 coach, 7-5 in the regular season last year, but that's what the track record says. But like, you've got to prove that the track record is right. You've got to go out there and, take advantage of a Big Ten schedule that we've talked about that is, not easy, but they're also not facing Oregon and Ohio State. They're not going and getting Penn State on the road. They're getting them at home instead. Like they're getting Michigan early on in the season instead of the end. Like there's a bunch of things that I think still fall in SC's favor. They've got to take advantage of those. They've got to get the defense improved. They've got to, make Miller Moss or Mayava, whoever the quarterback is, to have success. And
they got to get the wide receivers playing well. They got to get the offensive line playing well. Like
the pieces are there.
This is such a prove it year for USC on so many levels. It really is fascinating. we can have
and I guess I'm just saying that even though you can sit here and say, well, they don't have the Josh Connerly, they don't have the Michael Williams, they don't have those guys that people wanted in recruiting 2-3 years ago. Even still, I think SC still has a team that is absolutely capable of winning a bunch of games, and on a week-to-week basis, they're going to have as much talent, if not more talent, than 90% of their opponents.
Mm-hmm.
It's still in their
instance,
possession to win this thing.
For instance,
to do their job.
Does Wisconsin, does Nebraska, does Maryland, does Rutgers, do any of them
Minnesota.
have a Minnesota? Do any of them have a single player in the top 20, in the top 100 players on?
I think Wisconsin had a couple.
Wisconsin has a couple. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
and I think there was one Rutgers guy.
Yeah. When we get the roster ratings. When we get the roster ratings for College Football 25, not that this is the end all be all, but it's going to be a really good reference
when the game comes out on Monday.
When the game comes out. Will USC have a higher rated roster than the majority of the teams on its schedule?
Yeah,
I would wager.
Yes.
The teams on USC's 2024 schedule. Let me pull it up.
Don't we already have the overall rankings?
Do we have the overalls?
I think those are the overall rankings were like last week.
No, we got offenses and defenses.
Yeah, but there was overall top teams.
Oh, I thought it was just top 25.
Yeah, top 25 rankings. But I think
USC is in top 25.
But that would tell us because SC is in the top 25.
So let me guess. It's Notre Dame, LSU, Michigan, Penn State.
Hold on, pulling it up. Here we go. Top 20. LSU is 8th. Michigan is 11th. Wisconsin is 18th. SC is 19th.
Okay.
So everybody else is underneath them.
And Penn State.
Yeah, Penn State is 9th.
And Notre Dame.
Notre Dame is ahead. Yeah. So then Notre Dame, LSU, Penn State, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Five of the 12.
Yeah.
Yeah, 5 of the 12.
Yeah.
And of those, SC only gets one on the road
in
Michigan. So yeah, it could be so much worse. I guess what I'm saying is, I think SC. We still have to remember that SC has a ton of talent, even though, but
that's USC's rating with us looking at ratings already and saying we think USC is going to have a lot of guys in a weird
could take a big step forward.
80-ish because they have not proven themselves. And so who knows what they're going to be like, but this is where for me, Lincoln Riley needs to come through because people have been to me erroneously claiming that Caleb Williams made Lincoln Riley, which again is absurd. But Lincoln Riley gets
at some point, if you sit there and say that Lincoln Riley only succeeded because
of his quarterback,
because of Baker Mayfield's, Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray, and Caleb Williams, at some point you sit there and go well, who brought those guys? And
yeah. So Lincoln Riley gets to prove that his offense really is legit, even beyond Caleb Williams at USC. And Danton Lynn gets to have the ultimate prove it because if he turns around USC the way he turned around UCLA,
USC, yeah.
I worry that Danton Lynn is not long for Los Angeles if that happens.
This is my thing. To go back to the Feinbaum thing of Lincoln Riley leaving, I think if SC has to replace Lincoln Riley after this season, it is most likely only because of good things that happen.
Yes. Well, it's because in the NFL, he leaves for the NFL.
Yeah, he leaves for the NFL or something like that. Yeah. Anyways, let's talk about everyone's favorite segments. The Big Ten. You ready for the Big Ten moment?
Minutes?
Big 10 minutes. Yeah. Let's get to it.
A Big 10 minutes.
All right, we're talking about Ohio State, the Ohio State University, founded in 1870, as funded by then Ohio Governor Rutherford B. Hayes. Ever heard of him?
I have.
Yeah, he was the president. Ohio Agricultural and Mechanical College. Alicia, I think this technically means it was Ohio A&M. What? Like, go back
It
to
is
Ohio
A&M.
A&M. Look at that. The Ags. Wow. But let's talk about the whatever. Ohio State, of course, owns the as a trademark on Ohio State merchandise that is representative of the athletic department. But are they the only university that starts with a definite article? No. There's even several in the Big Ten alone. Penn State officially is named the Pennsylvania State University. Rutgers is officially named Rutgers, the State University of New Jersey.
That's a lot, Rutgers.
Michigan goes by U of M. UCLA goes by UCLA. But both of them on their official seals as universities, the University of Michigan and the University of California.
So USC is University of Southern California. It's not the
University
of Southern.
There's no doubt.
Gotcha.
There's no doubt. So, in other words, Ohio State University, often called the State University of Ohio, yeah, it's
I like Ohio A&M.
It's there, but like
I
the that isn't that rare.
We need to go full bore with the USC message boards and make Ohio A&M happen.
Yeah, there you go. Of course, Ohio State University represented it's in Columbus, Ohio. They're the Buckeyes. Why are they the Buckeyes? Because the Buckeye tree is the official tree of the state of Ohio. The nuts are dark brown spheres with little tan dots on them, which sort of resemble the eye of a buck.
What were the odds that USC went from one conference that had a tree mascot to another conference that essentially has a tree mascot?
Pretty good. The OSU officially adopted the name Buckeyes in 1950 after years and years of being informally referred to as the Buckeyes, since Ohio State, of course, is the Buckeye State.
This is the most sensical, as opposed to nonsensical mascot origin story we have come across in the Big Ten.
Yes.
So far.
Yeah, it's very straightforward. It's the Buckeye State. There's a nut. They look like the eyes of bucks. The team, therefore, called that.
Yes.
One weird Ohio State fact: in 1926, Ohio State's homecoming queen was Maudine Ormsby. She was a Holstein cow.
They're not beating the Ohio State A&M allegations.
No. Well, okay. So the story on this is that the woman who won, she won with like a vote. There were 12,000 votes, but there were only 10,000 students at the time. So people were like, this is a little fishy. So she recused, whatever the word is. She makes herself ineligible, right?
Yeah, recused herself. For
the second place person in the homecoming queen voting was Maudine Ormsby, who was a phantom prank candidate put in by the School of Agriculture. Of course.
This reminds me of one of the most recent episodes of Pablo Torre Finds Out that I have been telling everybody and their mother to listen to, where talking about how the Buffalo Sabres drafted a fake Japanese player
in 1974 or
in 1974.
Yeah.
Go listen to it. It's wonderful. But yes, the Ohio State fake homecoming queen candidate cow.
It's a great story.
Wonderful.
It's a great story. Yeah. Ohio State has two fight songs, Buckeye Battle Cry and Across the Field. We reached out to our good friend, Nick Shook of NFL Network. Which one is the one? And he said Across the Field, kind of probably more famous. He likes Buckeye Battle Cry a little bit better.
Is this like Fight On versus like Conquest, if Conquest had lyrics?
I wonder if it's Fight On versus Tribute.
Okay. Or Tribute if it had lyrics.
Sure. Something like that. But we're going to read Across the Field.
Okay.
Which is Across the Field. Here we go. Fight the team across the field. Show them Ohio's here. Set the earth reverberating with mighty cheer. Rah, rah, rah.
Gotta have those rahs.
Hit them hard and see how they fall. Never let the team get the ball. Hail, hail, the gang's all here. So let's win that old conference now. I think it's hilarious that Ohio State has a fight song with hail,
with hail in it. Yeah. There are lines of this that I absolutely love.
Set the earth reverberating with a mighty cheer. Fantastic.
Is
Love
great.
It.
But
A+.
I hate, like, I need things to rhyme in like couplets and be very structured. And I get really mad when you break a rhyme.
Mhm.
So let's win that
Well,
old conference now does not.
Buckeye
work.
Battle Cry has 11 warriors brave and bold in there, which 11 warriors
is
a
the
reference to
great
11
website.
warriors site.
Yeah.
Comes from the song there. But drive down the field. The men of Scarlet and Gray, don't let them through that line. We have to win this game today. Come on, Ohio. I like that too. There's good stuff there. Let's talk about the alums. A lot of big founder, inventor types. Paul Imes, the founder of Imes, the pet food.
Hey.
He went to Ohio State. Carl Probst, the inventor of the Jeep. Roy Plunkett, the inventor of Teflon. Every politician's favorite surface. How about Abraham Laurie, the developer of Marina Del Rey?
Hey, Los Angeles connection.
Yeah, if you're from the MDR, you can credit a Buckeye there. Howard Dwight Smith, the architect of the Horseshoe, the stadium, Ohio Stadium, the Horseshoe. George Steinbrenner, the 5-time firer of Billy Martin and the late owner of the New York Yankees. Dwight Yoakam, the country singer. R.L. Stein, everyone's favorite childhood author,
Not
I
mine.
think.
Those books scared me.
Richard Lewis, rest in peace, Richard Lewis. Jesse Owens, the Olympic hero.
Heyo.
Jack Nicklaus, the golf god. Kirk Herbstreit, the greatest football analyst of all time. I will make that an argument.
No argument.
He's the GOAT. You want a perfect box? Put perfect press box. Keith Jackson, Kirk Herbstreit together.
Let's do it.
Can't beat it. And of course, Jack Buck, the voice of the Cardinals, the father of Joe Buck. And I'm going to go on a hot take here. I think the person who has the greatest call in the history of sports. Gibson swings and a fly ball to deep right field. That's going to be a home run. Unbelievable. A home run for Gibson. And the Dodgers have won the game 5-4. I don't believe what I just saw. I know everyone loves Vin Scully's call.
No, I'm with you. I don't believe what I just saw. I don't believe what I just saw. That's
Vin Scully's call is a 100% call.
Yeah.
Jack Buck's is like one slight percentage point above. Either way, they're the best two calls in the history of sports.
Yes.
In the same moment that they were sitting probably like 20 feet from each other saying it at the same time is nuts.
Yeah.
But here we go. Last notable alumni to mention, Jeffrey Dahmer. Okay.
Hey, they got to have their own serial killer.
Yeah, you got to.
Yeah.
All right. Minute 43 to go. Here we go. Perception of Ohio State fans. There's a lot of them. There's a big school, right?
There's a lot of them. They're very passionate.
A lot of weirdos that dress up in garb.
They have a lot of garb.
Buckeye guy. Yeah.
I don't have a bad perception of Ohio State fans.
No, passionate.
Very passionate, respected.
Yeah. First athlete that comes to mind?
Eddie George.
Eddie George. Okay. I say Archie Griffin. Mm-hmm. 2-time Heisman winner, the only one to win the Heisman twice, even though we know the second one was fraud. Famous Buckeye players: Luke Rosa, Chris Carter, Eddie George, Ted Ginn, Bo Schembechler.
It's funny.
Jack Tatum, Troy Smith, 10 national championships, 7 Heisman trophies, 41 Big Ten titles, all time against USC. They have a losing record. The Trojans are 13-10-1. Of course, we remember the 2008-2009 home-and-home series, which was great. SC won 35-3 at home in 08. Went on the road. You got to love what Joe McKnight could do. Mm-hmm. On that drive, 18-15 SC wins in Columbus in 2009. 5 USC to Ohio State versus Ohio State Rose Bowls in a 12-year stretch from 1969 to 1980. The Trojans won a bunch of those with iconic moments. You had John McKay taunting Woody Hayes with the Sam Bam Cunningham going over the top, the leap. The J.K. McKay catch in 1975. The Charles White touchdown in the final moments in 1980. The next game, of course, 2026 at the Coliseum. Ryan Day's the head coach, and that's the Buckeyes.
Nice. Hit the post. Justin.
As he doesn't play them for 2 years, we don't really got to talk about the current stuff.
In a perfect world, USC will play them this year.
Yeah, or next year. Yeah.
In a perfect world, USC plays them this year. That's the way I sort of look at it. I think that it's funny hearing this all get sort of thrown out there. USC Ohio State might be one of the most underrated
National rivalries.
national
Intersectional rivalries.
intersectional rivalries.
No longer anymore.
I mean, yeah, because
Conference rivals, baby.
It's now intrasectional.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think that it is such that these matchups have produced such legendary moments.
Well, we've talked about it before. Like, you look at SC's rivalries and they're in little tiers, right? Like, the top tier is UCLA and Notre Dame. Pick your poison. Who you want is 1 or 2. 3 and 4, the next tier is Stanford and Cal. And we've always said the next tier after that, you can choose either the conference rivals of Oregon and Washington, or the national historic rivals of Michigan and Ohio State. And I think Michigan and Ohio State and Oregon and Washington, all of them collectively are all sort of in that boat now. But historically, right there, like Ohio State is one of the schools that you judge SC by historically, and because of those great, games in the 70s.
In a weird way, as much as people say that like there's culture shock with USC going to the Big Ten, in a weird way, USC and the Big Ten have already been linked together
because of those
inextricably. Yeah,
absolutely. Let's get to the mailbag, shall we?
You've got mail.
All right. Let's start with a question we got here on the YouTubes from Ron Murdy. What are the things you're looking forward to most heading into Big Ten Media Days?
I am looking forward to hearing from Miller Moss. There was an interview with him going around on Twitter recently that like I put this on Twitter. I have to admit, like, Miller Moss has completely and utterly won me over.
He says the right thing every time.
In the sense that, like, one of the things that can be frustrating being a college football fan is we care so much. We care about USC winning. We care about the university. We care about the community. We care about all of that kind of stuff. And sometimes, not that this
Show me something. Show the fans something.
Not that this is like, not that I'm making a judgment, because this is across the board. Every school deals with this. There's like a business like nature to college football sometimes, with players who come and are, they're at USC and they certainly want to win, but it doesn't always feel like it's for the sake of USC. Miller Moss is one of those rare players that you look at and you think if he was not at USC, if he was not an athlete, if he was not a quarterback, if he was just a regular guy, he would be at USC anyways.
Yeah.
And you can't say that about most players on any given roster.
He's got the metaphorical tattoo, right?
Yes.
Like he's like the Barkley.
Yeah.
This is maybe a bad comparison. The Ricky Town, who had the picture, the childhood pictures, right? Like you see those things.
Yeah.
Those are John Jackson III, right? Like guys who have a history, have a legacy, either because they grew up as fans or they grew up because of somebody was close to them in the program or whatever. And Miller Moss is that guy who, like when Lincoln Riley says that he wants to go out and get guys who want to be Trojans,
Miller Moss is that guy.
Moss is that guy.
1,000,000%.
He's that guy. Yeah. I remember last year, I think it was after the opener, against was it San Jose State, that he had a touchdown pass in that game, and then Peter Arbogast was talking to him on my drive home from the game, listening to it, and the question was basically like, you have Caleb Williams ahead of you. You can leave. You can go to anywhere you want to go. That's what college football is now. There's no need to have loyalty to the school that recruited you out of high school. Why are you still here? And not asked in a skeptical way or a cynical way, but like in a like what is it about SC that has you here? And like Miller Moss's answer was basically like, I want to be a Trojan, man. Like I I bleed Cardinal and gold. I'm here because of I grew up watching Matt Barkley and Cody Kessler and Sam Darnold and all those guys. Yeah, like he's you cut his finger open and there's Cardinal blood coming out. Cardinal and gold blood.
I should hope. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the thing is like I anyone who's listened to the show has known I have been skeptical of Miller Moss as USC's starting quarterback in the past.
Sure.
The Holiday Bowl did a lot to ease some of my concern, but at this point, it's not like any skepticism that I had, any doubt that I might have or might have had, has sort of been washed away by just like this sincere desire for Miller Moss to succeed as USC's quarterback, because there's just something magical about like dreams coming true like that. So
I hate myself for making this comparison. Is he SC's Stetson Bennett? Like, okay, not literally,
I mean,
not
literally, because it's not fair to Miller Moss.
No.
Like, it's not, because Miller Moss is, again, and I think we have to say this a lot. We need to keep saying this. Like, we treat Miller Moss like he was some scrub recruit,
right? And I don't mean it like that.
He was a big time, like he was a 4-star, like top 100 recruit.
Yeah. But I mean, like a guy who was like seemingly destined to be like the SC guy, all about the SC.
Everyone
stuff.
assumed that Miller Moss would not be the one that would. Miller Moss is, I think that a better comparison might be like Miller Moss's status at USC over the past couple of years has been very Matt Fink-like.
Sure.
In the sense that, like, yeah, he's there. Yeah,
but part of that is because he's been under Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
And so
well, like by comparison, everybody's going to look like Matt Fink to Caleb Williams.
Right.
But the question was going to be like, Malachi Nelson was supposed to be the guy over him. Jaden Mayava, some assumed that he would come in and be the starter. And Miller Moss has, I think, taken that. Now, there are 2016
Bennett. Like Stetson Bennett was
the underdog in every quarterback battle that he was in, and he still just came out on top because he had.
Yeah,
I mean, it would be amazing if Miller Moss turned out to be USC Stetson Bennett in the
Stetson
sense.
Bennett's first word was "ugga,"
but in the sense that, like, what Stetson Bennett brought to Georgia was sheer it factor, sheer desire, sheer just like that swag almost.
So where do you think Miller Moss Mercedes is going to be? Like in the Valley Kid?
Yeah,
jump down to the Miller Moss Mercedes of
Van Nuys. He's going to take over Keys on Van Nuys.
Moss and Van Nuys. There you go. You never know. All right, we got a couple emails about off-topic SC stuff. So if you hate Formula One, then we'll see.
If you don't want us to talk about Formula One, send in your questions about USC so that you almost filibuster our Formula One talk. But now we talk Formula One.
And in your phone calls, no one calls us anymore.
No one calls us. We got the line hooked back up, and
I think we need to put out like an APB for some of our callers. Michael in Iowa, what's going on, bud? Dave in Orange County, what's on, man? 818-643-7227.
It's a challenge. It's a challenge.
All right, let's get to these emails that we got. First one comes from Tony in Denora, PA. Woo! Lewis wins the race. Didn't know that was ever going to happen again. I didn't know if I was going to see him win another race. Another email from Big Poppy 55. What up, Brenda Troy? It's been a while since I've written in. SC News has been mad, but you know what hasn't? Formula One. What are your thoughts on this season? Started off as a Max-dominated season, but now he's not always winning by 30 seconds now. And what about Ferrari going from winning at Monaco to what the heck happened? Also, Sir Lewis Hamilton at Silverstone. Jeff's kiss. Fight on Big Poppy 55. Yeah, Lewis wins the British Grand Prix last week. I think in a great race.
I think that's one of the things that I like about following F1 is that I don't have like team allegiances the way that I do with other sports. Yeah. So I am loyal to whatever the best narrative is. And the best narrative at Monaco was Charles Leclerc winning Monaco. The best narrative at Silverstone was Lewis Hamilton winning And the best narrative for Max is always anywhere that the Orange Army is
But like,
winning.
I think it's great that Max is being like challenged. And if he wins now, it's like
it'll mean
very
more.
impressive, right?
Yeah.
Like he doesn't have the fastest car. You can make the argument he has like the third best car at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And yet he's still the odds-on favorite because he's going to put you into a position where you got to be perfect to beat him. And that makes it very difficult, right? And for Lewis to win a race again, awesome. It's a bummer that his streak of winning every year was sort of snapped a couple years ago.
Yeah,
but that he won a race at Silverstone in the British Grand Prix was chef's kiss, and that race was great. I am someone who I like Max, but also I feel like I'm rooting for Lando more than anything else right now, and the McLaren guys, and those are two dudes who could feel hard done by that race last week. That their race was sort of thrown away.
Narratives. Lando and McLaren, and they're
like Ferrari from 2 years ago.
They're growing pains. Will we see them finally like get over that hump? Ferrari being what happened to Ferrari, it's like Ferrari, like this is just who they are. And you don't want to see McLaren fall into that same trap of just one step forward, two steps back, which is entirely possible.
How are you going to feel when Sainz goes to Williams?
I hope that Williams and their investment produces a car that is drivable. Honestly, I'd kind of rather see Sainz at Williams than Alpine.
Sure, because who the hell likes Alpine?
Because it feels like Williams is at least trying to ascend, where Alpine just seems to be
who likes the French
mid-table.
right?
No matter, I actually like the French. I really enjoyed France.
I like Pierre Gasly, but Ocon couldn't.
Not my favorite.
No, not at all. So, no race this week, but they'll be back. Next week is Hungary. So.
Instead, we've got the Euro final on Sunday. We got Copa final. The soccer. Don't talk about soccer. Is all about it. Spain versus England.
Yeah.
I will.
I'm sorry. It's an all Chelsea final. It's Cucurella versus Cole Palmer. So.
It's future Liverpool star Nico Williams versus
future Chelsea star Nico Williams
versus hard done Liverpool star Trent Alexander-Arnold.
And then Copa, you have Messi against
versus
James Rodriguez, and it's like 2014 all over again.
Luis Diaz. Well, it's Liverpool's Luis Diaz versus Liverpool's Alexis McAllister.
Mac Allister.
Mac Allister.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, we're losing followers left and right. So, it's time for us to bounce. West Texas Mike says he'd rank across the field ahead of Victor's, which I think is a take. That is a take and a half. I like across the field.
But the Victors is
the Buckeye battle cry, but like the Victors
I think it is far and away the best fight song in college football.
There's Sergeant Pepper, there's Dark Side of the Moon, and then there's the Victors, and like they're right there. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
they're in that same discussion. And the only college football fight song that I think can get close to the Victors is your other favorite.
Oh, Notre Dame's fight song is a really, really good fight song.
Yeah.
Cheer for old Notre Dame.
You can't literally sing your own.
I'm singing my high school fight song.
It's the same thing. Literally, it's the same thing. So, all right, we'll be back next week. Until then, see ya. Also, we got a question from Sean in beautiful Austin, Texas on Twitter about like when we're gonna start streaming. I think we're gonna stream next week. So
we gotta be streaming next week because the game comes out next week. We were gonna try and do some lead up so we could learn how to do it all, and we have not done that.
We'll get it all figured out. So we'll stream or something next week. So until then, we will see ya.
See ya.
See ya.
Go Spain.